So there's been some interesting information developing around the new Switch 2 cartridges. Will they fit into an original Switch? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So when we originally found out about the Switch successor, as it was called at the time, having backward compatibility with original Switch games, we wondered, would there be some kind of notch or something on the cartridge to prevent you from putting the new cartridges into the old systems, much like you have with the DS and the 3DS? Well, there was this image here that was floating around earlier this week that many people thought was the answer to this question. And you can see here in this image on the right hand side, you've got that red Switch 2 cartridge and there's an indent on the corner there. And I saw a lot of people in their analysis say, oh, well, this dent is what's going to prevent this cartridge from going into the original Switch, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Normally you would have to have like a protrusion or something, unless Nintendo just thought ahead and enabled some type of mechanism to not allow something to insert when there's an indent. But if we move over to this image here, which is from that Welcome Tour tech demo, I'm still calling it, that's $10, we have where this image originated from, and there's some text on the bottom here that sheds a little more light. It says, this is how it tells, I'm assuming it's talking about the Switch 2, the difference between Nintendo Switch 2 game cards and Nintendo Switch game cards. Now let's not read into what's not on this text here. Nowhere does it say this notch is what prevents the Switch 2 cartridge from going into a Switch. It just says this is how the system tells the difference between the two cards. And this point is important because unless there's more information out there, we don't really have full confirmation that a Switch 2 card will not be able to fit into an original Switch. Now, obviously, the original Switch is not going to be able to play Switch 2 content, which brings me to Nintendo's website. Now, this is an interesting note that I hadn't really picked up before until a little bit more information comes out that we'll get to. And this comes from Nintendo's official website, and it's where they're explaining Switch 2 editions of games. So that's going to be like your Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Metroid Prime 4. And we'll just read through this section here. It says, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of a game is a bundle that includes the original game and its upgrade pack, which enhances the game to take advantage of the capabilities of the Nintendo Switch 2 system. Available only for select games. Contents and enhancements of the upgrade pack vary by game. They can include visual improvements, new features, or additional game modes. Now this sentence here is what I want to home in on. It says, features and content of a Nintendo Switch 2 edition game can only be played on Nintendo Switch 2. Now again, this doesn't say that the Switch 2 cartridge won't work on an original Switch. It just says features and content of a Nintendo Switch 2 edition game can only be played on Nintendo Switch 2. And this is important because we got a little more information today, and this is coming to us from Marvelous. And this is in reference to the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Many people had been asking them if the full game was going to be on the cartridge. Well, in this FAQ here they have, what is the physical Nintendo Switch 2 edition? And their answer is the Nintendo Switch 2 edition is a red 64GB game card that includes in full the Nintendo Switch game and the upgrade pack. There is no need to download the full game. Now this is the important part. Simply insert the card into either a Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch 2 console, and the correct version will launch automatically. So this says to me that you would be able to have both versions of the game on a single cart. Now, does that mean that that little notch in the Switch 2 cartridges doesn't mean anything about inserting? It still could mean that that blocks an insert, and perhaps the edition here doesn't have that notch. But it seems most likely to me that that notch is just indicating to the system that this is a Switch 2 cartridge, and either it'll be able to perform at a faster speed or it'll look for Switch 2 content. I guess we'll have more analysis of this later. So what all this really could mean is that if you buy the new Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 versions, you should be able to play that on your original Switch. You just won't have the feature enhancements that come with the Switch 2 version. And all this kind of makes sense. These upgrade packs have been $10, and if you look at the Switch 2 versions of these games, they're all priced $10 more. Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, and also Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, where they say that you can use the Switch 2 version in either the original Switch or the Switch 2. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, that means that the cartridge is going to run slower because it has to be compatible with the original Switch. Well, the Switch 2 cards should be able to basically run at a slower speed. It's kind of like if you buy a faster SD memory card and you put it in a system that's slower, it'll still work, it's just going to work at that slower speed. Now, as of right now, I've read several different articles where they said that they've reached out to Nintendo for clarification on this. Now, if you see somebody say that they called customer support and they said that you would be able to use the Switch 2 version in original Switch, I wouldn't put a lot of weight into that answer. I'd wait until we have some type of an official interview with somebody from higher up in Nintendo to give you that answer. Now, if it is the case that these Switch 2 editions of these games can be played on an original Switch, it seems like Nintendo could have come up with like a better logo to put on the packaging. All we have is this disclaimer at the bottom that says it includes the Nintendo Switch game and the Switch 2 edition upgrade pack. And there's been a lot of confusion about this wording. And Microsoft's solution to this was what they called Smart Delivery. So you basically buy one version of the game and it delivers the best version for your system. However, that's got some downsides in the fact that both versions usually are not on that disc. So when it comes to game preservation, when those servers go down, you won't be able to get the other version that's not on the disc. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think it's the case that this notch is just detecting the version of the cartridge that's put into the Switch 2, or do you think it's an actual physical lockout to prevent you from being able to put a Switch 2 cartridge into an original Switch? And do you like the idea from at least a game preservation standpoint of having the original Switch version of a game on the cartridge along with the upgrade for the Switch 2? I know the wording and the marketing on this has seemed kind of confusing, but if this is how it works, I think this is a great thing for game preservation because you'll have all the data right there on a single cartridge. You won't have to be relying on some server that could get shut down 10 or 20 years from now in order to be able to play the best version of a game. Drop your comments below and let me know your thoughts about all of this. And if you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so. It really does help the channel out quite a bit. I want to thank you for watching and be good.